and my son's calling me.
Oh, my
And you know what that's about. He's heartbroken. Saquon's going to the Eagles.
Oh, yes.
He's calling me right now to tell me, or are you? I'm seeing on TikTok or whatever right now. Oh, yeah, that's right. His name is Philly Willie Simms in our house. That's Phillip William Simms. He was very concerned. His buddy, Saquon Barkley, who he got to make a video with at the Super Bowl.
So this hit different.
This hit different,
yeah,
right?
That's tough.
So he was calling me, which is hilarious. My son calls me and tells me about breaking news sometimes. Like, I don't know. Right?
Yeah, but you got to act.
But I gotta act like, hey, I'm glad he's involved and wants to do it. But he was calling to tell me about Saquon and Kirk Cousins, right? So,
it's a pretty big one.
My whole family gets a little bit of a laugh out of that. But we are here. What's up, everybody? It's Wednesday. It's the third day of free agency. Connor Rogers is here. My way cooler in general, cooler dressed host than Ahmed Fareed. I mean, you put him to shame. There's no doubt. Look at the jacket today. He's got the shoes. He's got it all going on. But what's up, man? Always good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
I know about some good combos, and we'll try to hit it all in the NFL free agency world here today.
Free agency. I mean, you and I have been doing this going back to Bleacher Report. I remember we'd have you sit on the desk at what would be like 11, probably 55, or whenever, like 5 minutes before he would officially start.
Right.
And be like, we got to tape everything. And now we get to sit here and just talk about it for 2 hours in the podcasting world. So this is an awesome week, man.
It's been awesome, man.
The highs and lows of fan bases like no other. Maybe
Right.
this and the draft are the two biggest highs and lows for fan bases.
Yeah, well, this is like the official start of the season. This is the official start of hope for fan bases.
That's right. Everybody's a Super Bowl contender after a couple moves.
Everybody's looking for it. And
Right.
again, hey, even guys like us who do this and evaluate for a living, right? People go, well, tell me how this team's going to be next year. And I'm like, well, can we just get through the first week of free agency?
Right.
Let's see
You don't know
who
what
they
they look
have.
like.
Let's see what they look like. Let's see draft. Let's do all of that. But, I mean, you talk about movement, action, big names, big money, right? I mean, running backs.
That's the craziest part.
Getting money and having a market, right? I think the other thing that's shocking to me, and I don't know if I can put my head around this, I've been thinking about this, all the 1- and 3-year deals basically done out there, right? Is that where we're going as far as the NFL and the way it's concerned? Are players going to take this new, like, hey, I just want 2 or 3 years guaranteed money, going to do it that way and get me back at the market, and they're willing to take the risk of injury and not having more long-term security? I think so. I also think the teams like it. I think it makes it clean for the team, right? Well, wait. I don't have to figure out and balance shit 7 years down the road and kick the tires and kick the can down the road to now where it is a little bit more clean cut to go, wait, okay, this is this for the next 2 to 3 years, and now we know where we stand and we move on, right? I think that's where we're getting with the kind of money that's available in the cap space and all of that. It does feel like, only the really super special star players are going to see 4 years or more. And then everybody else is coming down to, it seems like 1, 2, or 3 year deals. More of them this year than I can ever remember.
I completely agree. I think there's a lot of variables in that. One, windows in the NFL are so small. And it's not that, hey, we can only win these 2 years. It's, hey, we're probably going to have to retool in 2 years.
That's another great point.
And
you're exactly right.
For the players' side of it, look at Danielle Hunter, which is the perfect example. That's a dude that's learned, a lot of different things throughout his NFL life. He's been a star. Yep. It's almost been over for him with the neck.
Right.
And now it's, you know what? I'm going to sign a 2-year deal at a place that's really exciting, and 48 of the 49 million's guaranteed. I'm seeing that money rather than I'm signing a 5-year deal. 60 of it's guaranteed, but I'm going to be, maybe not happy in 3 years or can't go hit the market again. It's just, I agree with you entirely. You have to have the leverage to do it.
Yep.
Kirk Cousins is a guy that just always has that leverage to live on those deals.
Played it right.
Danielle Hunter had that leverage to do it. But if you're a guy, like, I'm very curious what the Tyron Smith deal will look like. That's a guy that you would think 2 years, 85% of that money should be guaranteed if you want him.
I would think so. Yeah,
right.
It's got to be early money. You don't know how many years he's got in his career. And he's a guy that's banged up, right?
All the time.
You don't want to put a lot of money and investment into it. So, I would think it's a 2-year deal that maybe is really just a 1-year deal. Let's see how it works out. If he stays healthy, we give him the 2 years, right? Something along those lines. But, some interesting things. We're going to try to dive into all the ones that we find interesting, the topics interesting, teams interesting, whatever, right? So you lead the charge there, Mr. Stylish guy over there, okay?
Yeah, I got to actually earn my money here and do something. So, listen, you brought up the running backs. The running back carousel has been absolutely crazy. This is a market that the discussion point last year when you and I were talking this time of year, it was, hey, are these guys ever going to be able to get money? This year, we see the carousel, as you see here. DeAndre Swift out with the Eagles. Saquon Barkley in as Swift goes to the Bears. Obviously, Barkley out with the Giants. Devin Singletary in with him as Singletary leaves the Texans. Joe Mixon is in via a trade with the Bengals. The Bengals get Zach Moss to replace him. The Vikings cut Alexander Mattison. They go get Aaron Jones from the division rival Green Bay. Who does Green Bay replace Aaron Jones with? But a big money deal to Josh Jacobs, one of the best backs in the league. Antonio Gibson leaves the Commanders for the Patriots. The Commanders go get Austin Eckler as their pass-catching back. As the Chargers lose Eckler, they get more of a bang between the tackle
Jim
guy
Harbaugh
for
type of guy.
Harbaugh and Gus Edwards, the Gus Bus. And, the Ravens needed a replacement for the Gus Bus. They go get Derrick Henry. And then the Titans, as they lose Derrick Henry, they get Tony Pollard. Let's start it with this, Chris. Who is the best fit out of these guys, this giant game of musical chairs at the running back position?
That's a great question there. There's a lot to dive into with this conversation and why it's gone this way. Right? I at a base level, I think the big thing is this, where, hey, maybe some of these guys still aren't getting the value that I'd like to see out there. The value has gone up, and I think a little bit of that is because I do think teams got to be looking at it going, wait, we don't need Adrian Peterson, but having a good running back definitely makes your team different on that side of the ball. Again, Isaiah Pacheco, Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers, Jahmyr Gibbs and the Detroit Lions. I think those are lessons to be learned this year, throughout football, where teams are like, well, yeah, okay, we don't want to give the guy $20 million a year, but we need a good one because there's definitely some value in that. And I think teams realize that for sure, right? And I think a team I'm going to take low-hanging fruit. I still love the Saquon Barkley move. I do. I think Saquon fits that system of the way they run, the way they play. And, Saquon, if there was any weakness to his game at all, it'd be like, well, he's not a sledgehammer, right, going to just go put his head down and drive the pile, 3 or 4 yards every play. That's not who he is, right? There's going to be a little dancing and moving because he's so great at that. He's going to look for yards that way to a degree. Well, Philadelphia is going to provide a formula of space for him that I think is conducive to him succeeding there. So I love that, okay? I really do. Now, Josh Jacobs and the Green Bay Packers, I love the potential of that, right? I think it was a smart contract with what they did. Basically a one-year deal that is 3-year options after that,
almost
right?
You pay as you go.
Right, because and I think that's the proper approach too. Josh Jacobs, in the doghouse with Josh McDaniels, overweight last year, right? I think he's one you got to kind of keep your eye on and hope he stays on his game when he's away from the facility. So that one, I like that for sure, right? And I think Green Bay with their offensive line, damn good as we saw. Plus, you add in Jordan Love and the ability to throw play action pass and all of that. I look at that and just go, yeah, that has potential to be like something really, really special there. So those are maybe the two main ones. And then I think you throw in the Ravens and Derrick Henry. There's not a lot that I don't like here. I will say that. But the Derrick Henry one's exciting for obvious reasons. Again, I think it's more of an environment that's conducive to what we used to see with Derrick Henry when he was rushing for 2,000 yards, right? And, hey, it's not going to have to be all about him. The problem with Derrick Henry the last 2 years especially is he's like, wait, in Tennessee, our O-line's not as good, and there's no pass game to defend at all that anybody's scared about. So it's all about stopping me. He's not going to have to worry about that anymore either, let alone he's got a good O-line. We know he's got Lamar. They got young weapons at receiver. And Derrick Henry now I think will be able to, when he's at his best, can get all the momentum going downhill, right? He's not he's got to stop behind the line of scrimmage like Saquon and jump cut and try to bounce it outside. That's not who he is. He needs a little space to get going. Then he becomes the locomotive and he becomes impossible to tackle. But I think those are the ones that probably jump out to me the most. But there's not many here that I don't like. I will say that.
I want to stick with Baltimore for a second because they're one of the most balanced run games in the NFL. When you look at what they do, it's almost an even balance of inside zone, counter, outside zone, power, and they even use pullers a lot.
They do.
What do you think that they lean on with Henry that maybe they couldn't always lean on with the committee they've had over the years? Is there something that they can unlock even more on with him?
Well, he's pretty good at both as far as zone and pulling guards, right? They did that in Tennessee and had a pretty good variety there in his career. Here's the one thing that I think jumps out to me and what I think they need to, maybe reevaluate how they play a little bit. I do like when Lamar's underneath the center for them. Lamar's another one with play action pass. He's phenomenal, let alone the space it creates between the offensive line and defensive line and where you drop back to throw gives him great lanes to move and run and see the rush, right? So that would be the first thing I would say is, listen, I love Derrick Henry, I think, more at this point of his career, probably behind the pulling guards and all of that, right? You know, not that he can't do the zone stuff, but the zone stuff to me was more like Derrick Henry in his prime.
Sure.
Like, hey, I can kind of go out here to the right at like 80%. And just kind of pick and choose my hole. And when I see it, I'll hit it and go 100%. You know, I feel like, hey, he doesn't have quite the same explosion he did a few years ago to where I'd want him behind one of my big pulling guards playing smash mouth football like that. But I wouldn't want him doing it. My point to where I was getting at is out of the shotgun all the time. You know, again, when you're in the shotgun and you hand the ball off, you know this, the first step or two by the running back are going to be sideline to sideline. They don't get to get going downhill. And I think that's when he's at his best, and I would hope that Baltimore messes with that a little bit more.
Yeah, Addy M27 sees it how you do. He said, I like what the Ravens did in signing Derrick Henry, and I think they need to run more under center with him rather than in shotgun. Titans 1313 asks, well, really had a comment. Tony Pollard, pathetic. $8 million a year for a mediocre running back who barely cracked 1,000 yards with a 4 yards per carry in a good offense. Did they even ever really try to re-sign Henry? Was this really your priority in free agency? It's like John Robinson never left. Disheartening for a fan base.
Yeah, so here is what I would say. First off, don't judge Tony Pollard just off of last year. Right. The first part of the year, he was not the same. He was coming off a broken fibula. He's a running back. Last time I checked, the lower leg's kind of important to run fast and make cuts.
For an explosive guy. Yeah.
Second thing I would say is that offense got some firepower, no doubt about it. Right. But I don't sit there, and you've heard me say this during the year last year, I don't think it's like, oh, wow, they're so creative and they know how to use a guy like Tony Pollard to his total capacity anyways, right? That would be the thing I would say. And then, you know, last year they became definitely, even though Mike McCarthy started the year saying he wanted to run the ball, they became a pass-first football team. No doubt about that. And they were better playing through the pass game than they were opening holes in the run game. Pollard fits, all right, to the question, because it is a really good question at Titans 1313, right? Pollard fits what you guys are going to do on offense better now. That's the big thing. Let alone he isn't in the prime of his career. And again, when he was healthy 2 years ago, he averaged 5 yards per carry, right? So that's where I think you're going to see more of that player, and he's got greater value in the pass game too, and I think that's the importance there. So, yeah, younger, in the prime, you know, does have big play ability, right? You're going to see that this year. I don't doubt that at all. And then I think when you add that to the pass game aspect, which, you know, again, they're going to be short passes, intermediate passes, and they're going to use the tailback a lot, he's going to be perfect for that.
Yeah, Pollard now obviously in a run game that we feel like Bill Callahan's going to have a huge hand in, of course, there. They
Definitely.
were, you know, very outside zone heavy there in Cleveland, but Bill has run everything.
Bill's done everything.
Everything throughout his
Bill
NFL
does
life.
whatever he's got to do to win that game or wherever he thinks his offensive line is best as far as what scheme they block the best. So, yeah, they'll be ready. I mean, and then, you know, Pollard to me has got some specialness about him. Again, don't go too harshly on grading him for what he was last year. And I don't think that Packers offense, I mean, the Cowboys offense, all that creative, nor did I think last year that they were some force that, oh, wow, they can just run the ball on anybody. That's not who they were either.
So we've talked about the stars.
Yeah.
Who on the list do you think is the most underrated move? Does it maybe get appreciated like the name value of Saquon or Josh Jacobs?
Right. Ooh, that's a good question.
Aaron Jones in Minnesota is interesting.
It's a really good fit. Right. It's health, it's size, it's age, it's all that. That's why you don't want to pay him that money.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, I mean, he's still got big play ability. And we saw him go 60 yards down the sideline in the last game we saw him in the divisional playoff game against the 49ers, right? So he has that ability. And another one for the Kevin O'Connell offense, now they got another weapon in the pass game. And I think the first time since Kevin O'Connell's been in Minnesota that they'll have a back out of the backfield that they'll go, ooh, like we can legit formulate 10 to 15 plays a game around Aaron Jones and what he can do out of the pass game. And they haven't had that with Dalvin Cook or Madison last year. So that'll be a cool little element, a new wrinkle they can bring to the offense. But I'm with you there. I like that a lot. I think Antonio Gibson's better than people realize, right? I think he will help out the New England Patriots. Who else did I want to hit on here, right? Joe Mixon's got some wearing. I mean, Joe Mixon still got some value out there, right? Joe Mixon behind that offensive line when they're healthy in Houston, and the physical nature and still in which he runs, I like that as well. I don't know. There's not one here that I look at and go, that's stupid, or I don't like that. Right? I don't. Now, I know we have Zach Moss as replacing Joe Mixon, but I think in my heart of hearts, Chase Brown will be the starter, and Zach Moss will be the guy that comes off the back.
Which he was great at last year.
Right.
He was
but
great.
A lot of system fits. Gus Edwards makes sense for the Chargers, right? Singletary makes sense for the Giants. And of course, the year he had and Dayball knowing him and him knowing the system and all that. So, that's where I like. The one I'm most interested in or have a question about is Austin Eckler in Washington. We're getting to that point where up there in years, certainly, definitely not as good as he used to be, right? I know Robinson's going to be the main guy there, but I am going to be interested to see Austin Eckler and kind of what he brings to that Commander's offense.
Right, and if he can be an upgrade in Gibson's role. I know the offense is going to be different than what they did with Bieniemy.
I've had a few people ask me that, like, oh, we upgraded, right, with Eckler over Gibson, and I'm like, I don't know if I feel that way. I'm sorry, right? I think Gibson is like when his toe is healthy and he's good, I think Gibson's a pretty damn good football player.
Yeah, maybe even a little bit more versatile. I mean, Eckler is truly a pass-catching back at this point.
Exactly right.
I think Gibson, he doesn't really get utilized in the run game, but
he adds value to them. You can run between the tackles with Gibson. Like, there's no question about that. And, I think there is more versatility as far as, his scheme use and what he can do there.
Let's jump into a little free agency stock up or stock down, and I think the biggest question you have to start with when you look at this is really, does free agency pay off? A lot of dollars are paid in free agency, but does it actually have the short and long-term ramifications that you hope for? Let's look at the records of the highest spending teams in free agency. 2022, Jacksonville, they were 3-14 the year before. They ended up going 9-8. When you look at the 2021 Patriots, they were 7-9 and were able to flip that to 10-7. The Dolphins in 2020 are a really good example. They were able to turn 5-11 to 10-6, and then a couple other teams here. I think the most notable one on the entire list, Chris, might be the Bears going from 5-11 to 12-4 in 2018.
Yeah,
it feels like you get a short shot in the arm from free agency. You get that 1 year bump.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how the deals ultimately age.
Yeah, can you sustain it? Is there a real culture behind that, or is it just like, hey, it's an energy bump from a few new guys and all of that? Can we stay motivated? But I do think there's value in it. There's no doubt in my mind there. I mean, I do. Now, it's just, I think what you're talking about, can you sustain it, right? How are the contracts? Did you have to leverage, a bunch of other things just to be good for a year or two, in doing that and spending that money, right? I think there's some thought there. So I think that all plays into it. But I think as a whole, my general thing is, if you spend money, you're going to change your team. Now, I know last year was a little different. We don't maybe have that one team that popped out. And here's good job, Pete, and everybody in the back coming up with a list here, right? But I still think, okay, maybe we didn't have that team that went, oh, wow, they made a deep playoff run like the 2017 Jags did on the previous list, right? 3-13 to 10-6 to AFC Championship game and all that. Okay, then maybe none of those, but I still think there was some positive outcomes here with the spending of money last year that is going to help them turn the corner last year, and now put them in a spot to, now we've turned the corner and now we're a contender for real this year. And I think maybe that's what you got a little bit more last year as compared to the, shot in the arm, oh crap, here we are, we're an awesome team right away after a great year in free agency.
Two things with this graphic.
Yeah.
One, the teams that played in the Super Bowl are in the top 10, and the Niners and the Chiefs. They spend money, they know how to reallocate money,
exactly,
and they
right.
find themselves in
team
contention.
the right way.
And then you brought up context, Chris, and I think that's really important. The Falcons on this graphic, they go from 7-10, spend a ton of money, the third most in 2023's free agency, to 7-10. But I actually thought They did a great job spending the money. They were
100.
7-10 because they had no quarterback.
Exactly.
The free agent moves they made were pretty dang
They
good.
worked.
Yes.
Their team. We don't have any questions about Atlanta except one position.
Well,
and now we don't anymore.
Let's go right there.
So I'm with you there. And the Broncos turned the corner too.
Yes.
I know they didn't go to the playoffs and all that, but they turned the corner.
Yep.
Right. So now we're going, okay, I know they got the quarterback and all that, but a lot of pieces are in place. Same with the Bears. The Bears were one of the better teams in football the last 6-7 weeks of the season. And I look at the Bears roster right now, and they drafted Caleb Williams and whatever, and they continue to have a good free agent here. Right? I go, the Bears turned the corner last year, and now they're in a phase of, I go, watch the out for that team this year.
Could be a problem.
They could be a problem for a lot of football teams. So I'm with you. So I think we got a little bit more of that last year than maybe what we saw in other years.
Well, let's dive into the
Let's
Falcons
do it.
right here. Jacob Aristotle, Kirk Cousins isn't going to win you a Super Bowl. He is a slightly above average quarterback. Check his record against teams above 500 in primetime games in the playoffs. Time will tell. If the Falcons win the Super Bowl, it won't be because of him directly. He shrinks in big games.
Ooh, shrinkage.
Eviscerating Kirk Cousins.
I mean, seriously, is this guy a Falcons fan or not?
Or a Saints fan.
Yeah, I don't know what he is. But hey there, Aristotle, okay? Right. I hear what you're saying to a degree, okay? This is a really interesting conversation. It really is. Now, I don't even know where I want to start with this. Here's the first thing I would say. All right, the first thing I'm going to say, I don't love the whole primetime 500 record game, all that crap. One, the primetime thing's overrated. Here's the first reason I would say. The biggest ratings on every Sunday are the 425 game, and he's played really good in a lot of those games, but nobody knows. But there's more people watching that game than the Sunday night or Monday night football game. The other thing I would throw into about the primetime performance and all that, I think if we go back in time and you really unpack that, you're going to see in a lot of those primetime games, guess what? Kirk Cousins' team wasn't as good as the team he was playing in that game. So, again, it's easy to go, oh, he doesn't play well in primetime. But I think we go back and look at the list, you'd go, well, they definitely weren't supposed to win this game, and they weren't supposed to win that game, and they weren't supposed to win this game, and they were a shitty team here, and they were playing a much better team. They weren't supposed to win, right? And I think that's just, it's become a narrative that I don't agree with there, right? So I don't love that. Now, the Falcons, the Super Bowl, all of that, okay. I am one to say you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. Yeah, you need a team. You can't do Mahomes or Josh Allen here and go carry the squad.
It's 4 guys in the league like that.
Exactly
probably.
right. I mean, there's like 10 guys in the history of football.
Right.
So everybody's got to stop thinking they're going to get that.
Building a good team still matters. It's that simple.
This is where I'm glad you're leading me into this is where I think Brady and Manning and Mahomes are erasing our memories of world past of, teams with a good quarterback used to go to the Super Bowl, right? They used to do that a lot. Now, maybe that'll be less and less as we go on here. But there was, again, I certainly didn't think the Rams with Jared Goff were supposed to be oh, Jared Goff, he's going to take him to the Super Bowl, right? They had a damn good team, right? Most people didn't think that about Matthew Stafford, right? Until he went to the Rams, right? Most people had these thoughts, well, he'll never win a Super Bowl. He can't win a big game. He never only won one playoff game with the Lions. He got with a good team. Look what the hell happened, right? Now, I always was a believer in that. But, I think, again, we're a little stuck in that. Peyton Manning's the man, right? He's great. Again, in 2015, he was the last-rated quarterback in football. They went to the Super Bowl. It wasn't because of Peyton Manning. It was because of the rest of the football team. The Seahawks went to the Super Bowl twice. It wasn't because Russell Wilson was carrying the squad. Go back and watch all 16 games of those 2 years. They played unreal defense, ran the ball, and asked Russell to make 3 plays a game, right? So we're forgetting that. Joe Flacco and the Ravens, right? I mean, Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers. It's just, I think Brady has really erased our memory of that a little bit. And so I do think you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. And again, he's not a superstar, but he is a really damn good quarterback. Top 10-ish, top 12-ish for sure. And it's not easy to find those guys, let alone the top 3 or 4 guys that you mentioned already before. So I'm a big fan in a lot of ways of Atlanta making a move for a guy that they go, wait, he's a proven commodity. He fits our offense. He knows our offense. Raheem's worked with them before, right? The Zach Robinson is coming from a coaching staff that with Sean McVay, who's with Kirk Cousins. He worked with Kevin O'Connell, too, who's probably told them a bunch of things about how awesome Kirk Cousins is to work with, right? So they got a guy that they like and they know is good and can lead their team, and now they're going to build the team around that. So that's what I would say to that, Aristotle.
So Pete did some research.
Yeah.
Jacob Aristotle is a Vikings fan.
Okay.
So he might be feeling just a little, scorned
sure.
right now.
Right.
And I get it. And it will be on Kirk to win some big games this year, undeniably. But, damn, you look at him with that roster, I mean, that team should be really good.
Atlanta's roster is legit, right? I mean, now you got the quarterback. I love the Darnell Mooney move. Now, I mean, to open the field up, because that to me was their problem. We run the ball. We have Pitts, right? He's a tight end. Even though he's awesome and athletic, he's still not a guy that you go, oh, he's going to open the field and stretch the field that way. Drake London's not that kind of guy. Drake London is big body, awesome route runner, going to catch a bunch of 10 and 15-yard passes and just tear your ass up that way, right? So now they got a guy where it's like, ooh, they're playing the run hard. Ooh, they're all over Drake London and some of our 10 and 12-yard concepts, right? Oh, here goes Darnell Mooney deep down the middle. Boom, touchdown. So I love that aspect of it. The defense was already damn good. It was top 10-ish all year last year. Then because of these moves, now they feel like at number 8, they can allocate themselves to best defensive player available, pass rusher, Dallas Turner, maybe something like that. I haven't got to the pass rusher.
I think you're right on it. You're right on it.
So that's where I like that, right? And I will say, as we dive into this more, my thoughts on this trade, I feel like the more time I had to think about it, the more really what happened is I started to talk about it. I went on a radio a few times and did that. And as I was saying things out loud, sometimes it hits you when you say it out loud and you hear yourself, right? Because, Connor, I'd been a little bit of like, man, I can't believe Kirk Cousins is going to leave that formula. And, wow, Atlanta's going to take, a little bit of a risk here on a guy that's older and Achilles, right? And all of that. And I kind of thought about it through that prism and thinking that Kirk Cousins really wouldn't pull the trigger on this
I wasn't
move.
sure either.
I didn't know if he would either, and I didn't know anything substantially from anybody I trusted in the league to know that was happening. I'd heard some of the rumors and all that, right? So I was kind of thinking, and I was thinking like, man, why, if you're Kirk Cousins, you're going to throw away Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings offense and Justin Jefferson and Mariota, right? But as time went on and I started to talk about it more, I started to look at, Jacob, Aristotle, again, hey, I think you can win with Kirk Cousins. But I sit here and I do go, I don't know what the hell Minnesota was thinking. I really don't. I don't. Now, again, I know they want Mahomes or Josh Allen or something like that. They want an elite quarterback, The GM said that. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, right? He said that 2 years ago. And sure, I want one of those guys or one of those elite guys too, but where are you going to find it? Who is it? Who's it going to be? You let go of a proven commodity top 10-ish type quarterback where your offense was basically unstoppable for 2 years, right? You have a big-time receiver and a coach who knows a coach who knows how to get the most out of that quarterback, and the quarterback who can handle the most of what the coach has to offer as far as the offense. And you throw that away when you look at the rest of the team and go, damn, the team's pretty good. I like some of the moves they made. That, to me, is I think a Vikings blunder. I really do. And here's the point I made. If we don't hear the numbers of what they offered Kirk Cousins here in the next, 24 to 48 hours, that means they gave him something that was not even respectable.
Not competitive.
And will tell you that they didn't even really want him, right? But the head coach wanted him, for sure. And there's obviously
saying it at the combine.
There's a disconnect. And that, to me, is watch out for dysfunction going forward here. And this is why guys like Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions, Shanahan, whatever, other offensive coaches in the future are going to go, I want last say on roster control, right? Because here I am. I'm an awesome coach. I know how to evaluate quarterbacks. That's why you got me. I'm telling you I want this guy, and we're awesome, and we're just going to be even better. And we're going to not offer them the extra $3 or $4 million a year to keep them here and let some other team swoop in. I think that's a big mistake by the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, and then it's kind of thrown on the lap of the head coach. You figure it out now. I think that's the frustration part, right? And we saw in a very, very different capacity Mike Vrabel. We never thought he would be on the market this year. That felt like it was always a roster control battle. Kevin O'Connell is a great coach, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they figure this out. And speaking of the Vikings, George North asked, why did the Vikings not make sure to get Russell Wilson as a backup plan? Wilson with the Vikings would have been a far better fit and spot for both the team and the player than the offensive difficulties of the Steelers.
Yes, I hear that. Now, I addressed this a little with Florio yesterday. I don't agree with that from this standpoint, George North, and like, I think at a base level, right, a lot of people are going to think what you're thinking at, George. And I don't think your thought's crazy, right? But here, let me unpack it for you and why, I think it's probably better for Russell Wilson to be the Steelers than Minnesota, right? Russell Wilson, as I tried to explain to Florio a little yesterday and Monday, he's never been surgical quarterback. I'm going to run an offense and have 9 million checks, and we're just going to surgically destroy you, and I'm going to go 30 for 35 today, right? I'm sure he had games like that. I know he did. But I'm talking like week after week after week after week, right? And so he's not that. He is a little bit of like we talked about with the Seattle or – what you saw with Sean Payton. You got to hey, we're going to run the ball. We're going to call this pass play. We're not going to give too much to him at the line of scrimmage, a ton of checks, right? And then occasionally we're going to call a deep shot because he's a great deep ball thrower, and we're going to play that way. That fits Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh wants to run the ball. They want a quarterback that takes care of the ball because they have a defensive head coach. And then Arthur Smith, right? I think it also fits him, the new offensive coordinator for the Steelers. He came from, Atlanta, Tennessee. I think about what he had in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, right? They ran the ball, and then they took their tactical shots down the field, and Tannehill's a great deep ball thrower. I think that's what they want to do in Pittsburgh. I think that fits Russell Wilson better than him going to Kevin O'Connell and Kevin O'Connell going, hey, we're going hurry up. It's 72Z, big OU split. Hey, Cannon with 58 Lexus. Hey, if they play this, go to 2-jet, all go, and alert the clap and all that. Russell doesn't do that.
Right.
That's not what he is, right? So he doesn't fit. A coach like Kevin O'Connell looks at a guy like Russell Wilson, and then plus when he knows and hears the stories about, Denver and Sean Payton, he goes, wait, I try to do a lot of Sean Payton type stuffs and hurry up and quarterback at the line of scrimmage. That's not what Russell Wilson's game is. I don't want that, right? So I think that's why you now see a move to Sam Darnold, who I think is more along those lines of, wait, this guy can handle all my verbiage and all the checks and all the rules I have, and now let's see if he can succeed with a team around him for the first time as a starter. We'll see where that goes. But still, man, the Vikings letting go Kirk Cousins. I know we got at Lee C. Eldridge here, talking about sticking with a mid-level QB, paying him a lot of money is a really hard way to win a Super Bowl. I applaud the Vikings for figuring it out. Reminds me of the Chiefs with Alex Smith. Good team, but difficult to win playoff games, right? First off, I believe Kirk Cousins is better than Alex Smith as a thrower and a passer and aggressive decision maker and all of that. I mean, Alex Smith's nickname was Check Down Charlie throughout the NFL, right? There'd be guys wide open down the field. That's why they stopped it. It was the Steelers divisional playoff game when they lost, right? And the game got changed because I think it would have been the weather that year or whatever. There was people open everywhere, and he wouldn't pull the trigger. And that was when they went, I think we need to do something else at quarterback, right? Right. So my answer to at Lee C. Eldridge too is that's fine to replace Kirk Cousins. I get that, and he's played at a much higher level than Alex Smith did in Kansas City. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. This is better than Alex Smith was in Kansas City. Okay, but then you better replace him with something special. Then that's the point there, right? I mean, that's the point. Kansas City made a bold move. And then put in assets to trade up, 17 picks to get Patrick Mahomes, right? So, they avoided the criticism because they went with a guy that they believed in and saw greatness in, and, of course, they made it work on the football field. Well, Minnesota's got to do that now, or we're all going to sit there and go, whoa, look at Atlanta going to the playoffs. What the is Minnesota thinking?
100%. Yeah. And back to your point to close the book on the Russ Minnesota offense aspect. I mean, from 0 to 19 yards, middle of the field. Cousins in 8 games. 8 games. Had more attempts in that area of the field than Russell Wilson had in 15 last season.
So there you go.
It's just not what he does compared to what O'Connell
Russell wants
does.
to throw the ball outside.
Yes.
He wants to see people, right? Russell is been taught by Pete Carroll and a defensive head coach, and he told him when it's hairy down the middle, don't ever throw it.
Yes.
We don't need
Still
to
plays
risk
that
it,
way.
right? Right? Kirk Cousins, to your point, I love that you're looking up these stats for me and backing me up here. Yeah, Kirk
That's
Cousins
jarring.
is like
8 games to 15.
Yeah, right.
More attempts.
Right.
8 games.
Right. And Kirk Cousins is like, wait, there's a window the size of
Gotta have it.
a hole over there? I'll throw it in there. I'll smash it in there. That's where he's special. There's more of that goes on in Kirk Cousins' game that people don't realize, where if they like sat down and watched film with us, you know, and we'd sit there and go, man, look at this throw and this decision. This is like a little more special than you're giving it credit for, right? And those are the things, yeah, Russell Wilson doesn't throw the ball down the middle field in those spots. And, yeah, I think that's why a guy like Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings wouldn't want him.
Before we close the book on the Vikings, I want to ask you, Sam Darnold on a 1 year, set to start.
Right.
They're picking in the top 15, but not in range for one of the top 4 quarterbacks. We don't know what the entry points are in a trade-up.
I know.
1, do you think that's something they have to explore? Or 2, are you comfortable enough with Darnold that you're sitting there and going, maybe a guy falls to us where we're picking and we're going to roll with Sam and that guy?
I would explore it, right? But
I think they are, by the way.
I would
really
think they would.
Are.
I would. You know, I mean, again, it's they're paying nothing to the quarterback position right now, so they certainly could afford to draft one. It's not going to be like, oh no, now we're paying $17 million for quarterbacks, right? I mean, it's nothing either way. So yeah, I would expect them to. Now, you know, the value to make that type of move or whatever, again, a team that's, you know, good but still got some holes and can certainly get better. How much of their future do they want to leverage on that, right? How strongly do they feel that, wait, one of these guys we can trade up, do we really feel is worth all these assets that we got to do, right? Because I certainly don't think Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams will be there. So that's where it goes. But, you know, yeah, I would expect them to dive into all angles as far as drafting a quarterback, see where that goes. But I think they got themselves an insurance policy with Sam Darnold to go, wait, we feel like his skill set and what he does can fit Kevin O'Connell. And we'll see where there's some potential there. And then I like their other moves they've made, you know. We talk about Kirk Cousins, and that stinks. But, man, Blake Cashman, really good value, awesome middle linebacker, right? Andrew Van Ginkel, I mean, stand-up linebacker, DN, can do it all.
With
I like
Grenard.
That. And with Grenard.
Now they actually have a duo.
Who I'm a fan of, right. I like Jonathan Grenard as well. And then you talked about Aaron Jones. So they've made some good moves to improve the rest of their football team. The quarterback thing's all we're going to evaluate, though.
Let's stay in the NFC and move over to the Eagles. Don Drakey asked, is Philly better off with Saquon Barkley over Patrick Queen? Very similar deals. I feel Queen would have been better for the Eagles.
It's a close one. I mean, you know, here's the thing. Patrick Queen last year was awesome, right? But that was the first year you say awesome. Right?
Yeah, the green light really turned on out of nowhere.
I've got to think, you know, the contract being a free agent, and then I would think a year under Roquan Smith.
I was going to ask, what does that affect playing next to a guy like that?
Yeah.
Because this happens across the league. We saw it with Quincy Williams, was cut by Jacksonville. He played next to C.J. Mosley, and he became an all-pro.
You start to learn little nuances. You start to go, wait, I'm every bit as physically good as this guy. He just thinks a little differently than me. You know, he might not chase, you know, the rabbit all the time, right? He's a little more disciplined, and he's doing this to take care of his body. Oh gosh, man, Roquan, you're going in there to watch film right now to check out O-line stands to see who's pulling, who's not, see if we can get. Okay, I'll do that. I would think that's more or less what happened. He got a real pro around him that showed him like, hey, this is the way it's done here. Right? Let alone the competition of like, wait, this guy's good, but I could do that too. And I think it raised his game, right? So it's a good question. I think, I saw this question before we started the pod, and I was kind of trying to think about it a little bit. Saquon gives you a lot of bang for your buck right now. Okay, let's just say that right off the bat. He's going to put defenses in a bind. I mean, with those two receivers, the best offensive line in football, Jalen Hurts' ability to run, and now Saquon in space is scary, right? I mean, Saquon's the closest thing we've seen to Barry Sanders in open space since Barry Sanders retired. And this will be the first time he's in an offense that actually can create space for him. So that's where I do like that, right? And I still think he's a home run hitter, right, as far as explosive playmaker who can score touchdowns from about anywhere on the football field, right? They need a linebacker.
They do.
Right? But at the same time, you know, they got a lot of defensive guys that are studs. How much money are they going to put there? I guess that's what I look at. You know, Jordan Davis, you know, Jalen Carter.
Paid Bryce Huff big money.
Bryce Huff,
Big
Nolan
money.
Smith. Sweat's being paid pretty good. Hassan Reddick's being paid pretty good. Now, one of them is going to be traded, I expect.
Chauncey
but still,
Gardner-Johnson
You
got a
just
big
get
deal.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Nakobe Dean, right?
Yeah.
In the second round. I think they just decided to go, hey, let's not play the big money for that position. We got other positions on defense we got to pay and with some other needs here. And we feel like Zach Bond's a pretty good player from the Saints who can help us out in that position. You know, maybe they think there's another guy as far as, you know, on their roster that's developing. But I would think they're going to go Bond and Nakobe Dean and go from there.
And I'll say this, Chris. In this draft, there's no Saquon Barkley. There are plenty of day two. It's not a great linebacker class, but there are plenty of day two run and chase guys that I think can make up that gap they wanted in Patrick Queen. There's Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M. There's Peyton Wilson from NC State. I mean, Junior Colson from Michigan. And I know every Eagles fan's like, we don't draft linebacker early. You don't have to.
No.
I mean, look at the best linebackers in football right now. They're not taking in the first round.
Fourth round picks for the most part.
Right.
Exactly.
So I think that was the thinking here when you go into free agency. What can we get in the draft? What can't we get in the draft? And something they did get in free agency, Bird Gang Biss is pretty happy about. Maybe a little late, but Santa delivers like a C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Big hit on the edge. Welcome back, C.J. G.J. Bring that swag back to the Eagles defense. Fly, Eagles, fly.
They're killing it. It kills me as a Giants fan, but I mean, I give respect where respect is due. The Eagles,
2 steps ahead.
They are killing it. Howie Roseman is killing it. He got a few extra assets a few years ago, and he's never relinquished them, and they just feel like they have a never-ending supply of assets now. I mean, it's incredible. Made a few trades in the draft, and all of a sudden it's just like they're so ahead of the game. They got so many players, they can't even keep them all. Just like we're talking about. But everybody in football is looking for a better pass rusher right now. They're like, hey, we got a yard sale over here. You want Josh Sweat? You want Hassan Reddick? Hey, who wants him? Hey, highest bidder. I mean, it's incredible. Right? And they'll probably keep the one that's left over. And now you got Nolan Smith, Bryce Huff, Brandon Graham, and whoever's left over. And you go, okay, our 4 defense ends, we're good. There we go. That ends that story. I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I know this from people in Philly. They felt like they missed him last year. I told Florio this morning. They missed him, his attitude, you know, the swag.
The energy is totally different.
Right. The psycho-ness and what he brings to the defense, the physicality, the no-nonsense. He's the attitude setter. I think they felt like they missed that last year. And then all the other moves are incredible, too. I mean, Bryce Huff, come on. For $17 million a year, I think is a steal. And Bryce Huff, when I studied free agents last weekend and tried to look at like a lot of the top-tier ones, right, he was the one I came away with going, oh, he's better than I even thought he was. Like, I knew he was a special pass rusher, but he's great at everything. He got politically pushed out of town because of 2 first rounds they picked, right? And they should have signed him up last year for lower money and kept him and not worried about drafting another defensive end.
They blew it.
Yeah, they blew that.
That was absolute, malpractice, basically.
Right.
Just awful job by Joe Douglas.
The physicality of the player is better than I guess I expected during the year.
He's developed. He's not just speed off the edge. He has moves. It's funny too because
takes on blockers.
He kicked the shit out of the Eagles.
Yes,
when the Jets beat them.
Definitely.
And the Eagles. That's probably when they were like, this guy's going to be a free agent.
That was the game, right? Of Lane Johnson, I think, missed, right?
He was out.
He tore the shit out of whoever that was.
Was it Jack Driscoll?
It might have been Jack Driscoll. I mean, he whooped the shit out of him. Destroyed him. Yeah, I'm sure that was part of it, for sure. Let alone they have a very special eye for talent there. But the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Saquon, Devontae Parker, and adding him to the wide receiver room as a 3rd or 4th receiver is incredible. And then getting Landon Dickerson done. Landon Dickerson was my 2nd-team All-Pro pick this year. I think he is absolutely a killer. He is in that combo with Linderbaum down in Atlanta as one of the best guards in football right now. So to get that done too and get out in front of it, because like next year he's going to ask for $25 million a year, or that price is going to go that was another brilliant move by the Eagles.
This is an Eagles team that has 3 picks in the top 60. And 4 picks in the top 100 in total. So it's not even like they're going into free agency we have to spend because we have no draft capital. They have all the draft capital again as well. They are set up really nicely. All right, let's move over to the Jets here. Israel DMS7 asked, what was the Jets' plan? Bargain shop with a win-now team?
Well, I don't think they have, like, a ton of, like, huge glaring needs. We know what they need. The offensive line, and within that, you know, hey, the offensive line healthy there is not that bad. So the health and then add a little to that, I don't look at anything other than that to go, oh, wow, they need something else here. They're decimated, right? You know, no, I think they kind of addressed it the right way. Got a little size in the middle with Javon Kinlaw, a guy that Saleh probably has good feel or heard things from with the 49ers crew. He was there when they drafted him, right? Isaiah Oliver, of course, was another 49ers guy. He fits the Seattle 3 scheme. He knows how to do that. But, yeah, I think they were just looking for value guys. And then it's going to be about what move do they make here in free agency to add another lineman, or what do they do in the draft? I mean, it's going to be one of those two things. But I think, yeah, it's really bargain shop with the team that they feel like they got a lot of the key parts to be successful.
Dan Benetter said, I do not like Joe Douglas. He doesn't sign any players that they are desperately in need of. It seems like absolute arrogance to me. If I hear he has a number one more time, I'll puke.
Well, okay, so, like, what would be your assessment here, Mr. Jets fan, of what we got and what's been going on?
This is what scares me with the Jets.
Yeah,
they go into the draft every year, and it is so damn obvious what they need to do.
Yeah.
Last year, they needed a tackle. They got jumped for Broderick Jones.
Right.
Absolutely jumped.
Right.
Then they took Will McDonald, who I like as a player, but felt a little early. Every Jets fan thought Bryce Huff was going to be a star before the season.
Yeah.
And everyone knew that except the Jets. And we get to this point where they lose Bryce Huff because they didn't see that. So now Will McDonald needs to be Bryce Huff. I don't know if that's really fair. And now you're going into the draft again where their starting line right now, they got Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera-Tucker coming off a torn Achilles.
Yep.
They signed John Simpson to be a starting guard.
Right.
Everybody knows the Jets need a tackle at 10.
Yeah.
And they might need more if they don't get going here.
Right.
I think that's the frustration with Joe Douglas, that this window with Aaron Rodgers is not the time to really look for bargains because the Jets got 1 to 2 years to win. And I think that's the frustration with them, is that it's painfully obvious what they need to do in the draft every year because they don't do enough in free agency.
Who do we got as O-lineman?
That board went really quick.
Well, as far as on the Jets right now.
So Joe Tippmann will be the starting center.
The free agents.
Becton.
Okay, Becton I know, right?
Dwayne Brown,
right.
And then, you know, a lot of it's really going to be pretty similar because they were shuffling in guys. Like Connor McGovern got hurt. He was their starting center.
Right, but he's still there,
I think
right?
he's a free agent.
He is a free agent.
So the only guys coming back, like Wes Schweitzer, their backup guard center, which is a fine backup guard center. But they have 2 legitimate starting holes on this line right now.
Yeah, well, I think that's where they're going to go. Max Mitchell's back, right?
And Carter Warren,
so
their
he
fourth
could be a
rounder
guy.
from Pitt.
I mean, I know they like Max Mitchell, so he could be a guy that fits in somewhere there too. But I mean, yeah, the obvious thing is O-line, right? Hey, listen, this team. I don't. First off, I don't agree, Dan, with I don't like Joe Douglas. I mean, you go through the Jets roster, it's pretty strong. Yeah, I mean, Connor brought up the concerns. I get that. We got to get the O-line figured out for sure. There's no doubt about that. And I would think that a guy like Joe Douglas, you know, and I think that's what kind of stinks. He's got a little unlucky because he's tried to address this with Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera-Tucker and Joe Tippmann last year. They've been hurt. He's been unlucky there. He came from the Eagles and the Ravens before this, so trust me, he believes in big offensive linemen for sure. I just think they're probably going to try to find a value guy here somewhere as we go along in the next week.
Bakhtiari's going to be there.
And I would think Bakhtiari's going to be there.
Who the hell knows what
I don't know
that
what
means.
you're going to get and what's going to happen, but I would also think somebody else along with that. That's, you know, also a safe option. And then, like you said, the draft, I totally expect them to be in the tackle
wide receiver.
Yeah.
That'll be it.
Definitely.
You got to get a guy that can play across from Garrett Wilson.
Yes, they do.
Which we'll see if they enter that.
And they could end up getting a bargain receiver here in the next week, too.
I would imagine they talk to Odell again. They look at that kind of roadmap.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll
I
see
would be
with the
shocked.
Jets.
Right.
All right, let's stay in New York and go to the Giants here. Jim D said, I hate losing Saquon to Philly, but I love the Giants making both lines better. I'm with him all the way on this.
That's really the big thing.
What do you think of Illuminor? I thought he was good value. $7 million a year?
Great value.
I'm floored by that deal.
Great value and can play guard or tackle,
Right.
so he saves your ass no matter what happens there with the guys you got already, right? Oh, Evan Neal's playing guard. Okay, Illuminor can play tackle. Oh,
He's our
Evan
right
Neal's
tackle.
playing tackle. Illuminor can play guard. No,
Right.
I like that too. Again, this is what's been missing from John Runyon. Yeah, he can be a starting guard, right? I mean, this is what's been missing from the Giants for, I don't know, 10 years, 11 years. The Giants were like famous for 30 years straight for going, they got the biggest people you'll ever
Right.
see. The Giants are on the field, and they are actually giant, as
true.
in people. I mean, that's what they were famous for, right? I mean, it didn't matter. After my dad retired and they got into Strahan and Tuck and all those guys and Sean O'Hare on the O-line, like, I mean, again, I was playing during that time. You know, you just take the field and go, man, Giants, holy cow, they look good over there warming up. Holy shit. So finally, we look like we're getting back to looking like one of those teams, you know? And yeah, I love Brian Burns, of course. Like Jalen Mills, too, to go along with it. But then, yeah, the offensive lineman, giving them a little versatility there. Devin Singletary is a good replacement for Saquon.
Barkley.
Right, exactly right. And then, you know, to have Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Thibodeau, Okereke, and Micah McFadden, you know, as a part of that front seven now, that's a pretty damn good group right there. That's going to give some teams some problems.
All right, one more for the Giants here. Which quarterback will the Giants go after in the draft? Would they trade back and collect assets and draft McCarthy in the teens instead of 6? Let me jump out in front of you, Chris. I don't think you get McCarthy in the teens anymore.
I don't think so either. You know, I would question whether you get McCarthy or, you know, I'm a believer in Bo Nix too.
Right.
So where I'll be interested to see where that goes. I don't think the Giants are going to draft a quarterback at 6. I don't think they're looking for it, you know. And again, maybe if something really falls in their face here and they start to fall in love with a quarterback as Dayball breaks down guys and all that, maybe they do that. But again, I mean, it's a team where, you know, we're talking about there's a lot of different holes here, right? You know, I feel like the Drew Lock thing yesterday, signing him, makes me believe even more that they're going to stay with Daniel Jones, right? I just that would be my thought there. And I'm just trying to, like, I could see them doing it either way. I mean, they can get a difference maker, maybe one of these receivers at 6.
I mean, that's what I'm
certainly could help out.
Malik
right?
Neighbors or Roma Dunze, in my opinion, are already wearing a Giants uniform.
Yeah.
It just makes too much sense.
I
like
wouldn't
game-changing wide receiver.
I wouldn't be mad
Right.
at that at all.
And then
definitely wouldn't be.
They pick at 47, so say a Bo Nix, Michael Penix, somebody in that tier starts falling to the end of round 1, you have the flexibility to go get the guy if you want to do
point
that.
too.
I just don't think you have to take the guy at 6. I
No.
think you need to build a good team again. This goes back to that combo.
You know, exactly. I think that's what it is. You know, again, I heard, you know, some of the comments like the Giants have buyer's remorse about Daniel Jones. And again, my assessment of watching the Giants, right, being at a game in person 2 years ago, is like Daniel Jones is like problem 74 for the Giants. Like there is way bigger problems. You know, I'll bring up like my friend Florio brought up the other day. He brought up the Seahawks game last year. Remember when the Seahawks got like 11 sacks? And there should have been 21 sacks. He got out of like 9 or 10 of them. That's how horrible they've been up front and with some of that shit there. So, yeah, if I'm them, I'm staying with that. I don't think it's going to be an aggressive move to look at quarterback right now. I just don't feel like the Giants will do that. One, I don't think it's necessarily in their DNA to make that. I think they're smart enough to know we got other issues on our football team. I think Dayball is a believer in Daniel Jones. So for all those reasons, you know, if they do get a quarterback, I think it's more along the lines of maybe what you say later in the draft or something that I can't believe he's there.
Right.
We'll trade up and get him here right now.
All right, let's move over to the Bears here. Chad Clark, 321. I like the Swift move, but why not be a little patient at running back, a weapon outside opposite DJ, and where is the 3-tech or edge depth?
Yeah, okay. All right, so this is a good question. I'm going to pull up the Bears roster here. You know, one, I think they got into, hey, they wanted a running back. They feel like they needed another guy or a guy that was a difference maker, and they weren't going to mess around. And for what their team is, and again, Okay, $8 million is really a drop in the bucket as far as the NFL and the salary cap in a total capacity there. And they're obviously not sold on Roschon Johnson yet as being that guy or being able to carry the whole workload. He's a little bit of a straight liner and a power runner. That's what he is. Swift is a guy, you got Caleb Williams at quarterback and DJ Moore, and we're throwing the ball and doing all that. He's more of a space runner that way. Roschon, I think, is more of your guy like, hey, we're underneath the center. It's 2nd and 4. We want to smash it up the middle. Give it to him. Hey, we're in the shotgun. We've spread it out a little bit. Caleb's tearing it apart. Oh, here you give it to DeAndre Swift. He fits that. They obviously felt a belief there. They got a damn good O-line, I think, that's brewing there in Chicago. So I think they took that little value or that stance at the running back position. Now, the 3 technique thing, I don't. 3 technique and what receiver is what he asked about, right?
Right. Which the draft receiver, they could easily draft a wide receiver.
No doubt about it.
That's what they're thinking.
No doubt. And I know right now as far as like receivers that are big time on their roster, I mean we know they got a stud in DJ Moore. He's one of the best there is. How do they feel about Aviles Jones? Do they feel like he can contribute a little bit more this year? I don't know. But, yeah, like you said, they're going to find another receiver in the draft. I wouldn't be shocked if we find another one in free agency here, right? Like a guy like maybe like DJ Chark to replace a Darnell Mooney or something like that, right? A guy that's got big playability similar to that. They got Cole Kmet. They got all of that. So, I think the receiver thing will take care of itself. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Now, the 3 technique thing, again, I haven't evaluated D lineman here yet. But the one thing I'll say, I know they lost Justin Jones, but I think too, right? They lost Justin Jones.
I'm pretty
right?
sure, but they took Gervin Dexter with a 2nd-round pick last year.
That's where I was going.
Thought he was fine.
He did good.
He actually surpassed my rookie expectations.
Exactly. Me too. I didn't think he should have been drafted in the 2nd.
Very raw coming out.
Yeah, he was falling down,
all the
lost
time.
Balance, everything.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. When they drafted him in the 2nd last year, I was like, man, the guy's a specimen, but he's not a great football player yet. Well, they made him a pretty good football player, and I think that you're right. I'm right with you. I think they looked at it and went, wait. He's young and he could play 3 technique. He's athletic. He's big. He's got it all.
He's
and
a
I think
second-round pick
that's
on the
guy that they're going to go with. Exactly right.
Right. So, and I know they took Zach Pickens as well, so maybe they're expecting some development from him.
I think so.
And like you said, Chris, that's a position you could draft for depth, later on. So I think the Bears are in a really good place. I do. They have work to do, but they also have purposely set themselves up to do so much of that work early in the draft.
Right. And, free agent D tackles that are out there right now. I was trying to think.
Sheldon Rankins
is out there,
He
right?
had a really good year for Houston.
Who would fit their scheme. Right, I think but do they want to spend that type of money? What kind of money is he asking for? I'm sure he's probably the reason he's not signed is he's probably asking a little bit more than everybody would like right now. I think that's the biggest thing.
Quentin Jefferson would fit that scheme.
Quentin Jefferson certainly would too.
Cost effective.
Exactly right. So there's going to be options.
They're probably on that market. All right, the 49ers, your boy El Rey. How much help are Floyd, Gross-Matos, and Elliott? What changes, good and bad, will Brandon Staley bring to the defense?
Yeah, I think Brandon Staley's thing is going to be one, just learn their defense, right?
Yeah.
And then once he learns that, I think they'll lean on him for ideas, right? I mean, anybody you talk to with, Brandon Staley's a smart guy. He knows football and X's and O's and all of that. But as I always say, when you go to the 49ers, you got to conform to what they do, right? So that's where he's going to learn what they do. And then hopefully at some point, right, he gets a hold of that and Shanahan and Sorensen go, hey, you got another wrinkle for us? You think there's something that makes sense? And I think he'll throw that in there. So I think that's what he does. But listen, I love the edge guys they got. I love them all, like both guys. I'm a huge Leonard Floyd fan as a football player, right?
Severely underrated.
One of those where I was like, damn, you can get him for $10 million? Like that's it? That kind of player? And then Yetur Gross-Matos is another one that I'm a little surprised by the price tag. And I think there's untapped potential here, too. And I think he's going to be in a scheme here where, hey, a lot of times defense ends have to think about certain things. This is why the 49ers scheme is cool at times because they don't make their defense ends think about anything other than going to get the quarterback. And then they go, hey, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, you guys are freaks, so fill in the holes from there, right? That's kind of how they play. But to get those two caliber type of players, I think is phenomenal. I think it's an upgrade over Chase Young, just so everybody knows, for sure. right? For sure, let alone I'm guessing Chase Young was asking for, more money than either one of those guys, which I don't know why, but he is. And then Jordan Elliott, I think, is a great, depth, 3 technique tackle, and they need another guy. They do. So, that's something we got to look at. Who's going to be their other D tackle across from Javon Hargrave? Because I don't think Jordan Elliott's a starting type. I think he's a guy that he's depth. He comes in. He's part of the rotation. He doesn't do that. Does Eric Armstead lower his price and maybe go down to the price? That's another 3 technique that the Bears could get to.
That would be scary.
Right? But, so there's, we'll see where that goes. But they, I think, addressed some important things there, got some insurance for the Greenlaw injury with Eric Kendricks.
Right. Kendricks holds the fort for Greenlaw.
Holds it down until he gets back.
We opened the show talking running backs and talking heavy on the Ravens. They bring in Derrick Henry. They re-sign Nelson Aguilar, the big one, and Justin Matabuke, who had a great season, and Malik Harrison. The thing with the Ravens right now, Chris, they've lost Gus Edwards, fine, replaced him. Devin Duvernay. Starting left guard John Simpson goes to the Jets. Patrick Queen, Delshon Phillips, Ronald Darby, Geno Stone, and their long snapper Tyler Ott. It feels like for Baltimore right now, because Zeitler is a free agent as well.
Yep.
Both guard spots open. Baltimore's not. They find a way to draft and develop mid-pick, guards like no other.
They're hard.
They probably got to sign one out here. It's hard to go in with both spots open.
I would think so.
Maybe Zeitler goes back. Maybe.
I feel like he's at the point of his career where does he really want to go somewhere new?
It's a contender.
Go to a team, right? It's what I mean. It seems like it's one where they maybe they know something we don't. That hey, he likes it here. We like him. He knows that. We just got to tinker with the bottom line number or whatever that is. But that they're I've said this about Kansas City. They're hard because of the reasons you talked about, right? They're one of those teams that I don't ever know how they feel totally about their O-line and some of the guys they have as backups because they've been so good at developing guys and bringing them up along the way. But obviously there's got to be something done there. We know that. The other ones, again, it stinks not to have them, but, you can't keep everybody. You just can't. And again, you look at it and go, hey, Marlon Humphrey, they're paying him. Marcus Williams, they're paying him. Kyle Hamilton, they're going to have to pay him like the top safety in football. Roquan's being paid like the top linebacker in football. You just paid Matabuke, right? So you just paid Lamar the richest contract in there. So there's only so much you can do. This is what happens to the good teams. But I don't look at any of these moves and go, oh, wow, man, I think differently now about the Ravens. And, of course, I like the Derrick Henry thing, and I do think he'll add value to that running game.
A team that their roster got absolutely ravaged was the Miami Dolphins. They lose Robert Hunt, who got a $100 million deal from the Panthers to be their starting guard. Christian Wilkins goes to the Raiders on a massive deal. Raekwon Davis leaves to the Colts. Andrew Van Ginkel, who really stepped up and filled in for their injured pass rushers, he goes to Minnesota. And safety Brandon Jones, who's been kind of that key third safety for them, goes to the Broncos. They have found some value, Chris. They haven't had a ton of cap to work with, but they get a new center in Aaron Brewer. They bring in Jonnu Smith at tight end. Shaq Barrett takes a one-year deal. Now he's further removed from the Achilles injury. Maybe he gets back to being himself. Jordan Brooks, a big add to the middle of the field, as well as Anthony Walker Jr. And then Jordan Poyer, who has some ties to the Florida area, leaves Buffalo at the end of his career to go be maybe that safety replacement for Brandon Jones.
Yeah, the Dolphins they're a top-heavy football team. That's where it's tough here. Right, it's like how many guys can you pay?
Yeah, Tyreek,
right?
Armstead, they're gonna have to pay Tua.
Right, they're gonna have to pay Tua. Waddle's gonna be coming up here
Bradley
soon.
Chubb's contract's
right?
wild.
Bradley Chubb's is wild. Jalen Phillips will probably have to be paid. Right, they just paid Seiler. They're paying Jalen Ramsey.
Right.
They just got off the books with Xavier Howard because they're probably about to have to pay Javon Holland too. Right, so yeah, they got a lot of high caliber football players. Here's the one thing I don't love about right. It's a team that I brought up, they got a lot. I like it. I think the next thing I would say, they couldn't win any of the gritty, tough games last year, right? That was the thing we broke down. I think that's the fact of the matter, right? And they lose some of their grittiest, toughest guys.
Hunt and Wilkins fit that bill to a T.
Exactly. Raekwon Davis in the middle fits that to a T. So that's where I'm a little bit like, man, for a team that I felt like couldn't be as physical as the other top physical teams in football. They just lost their most two physical football players, right? So that's where. Now, they did a great job here. I do think of like value guys, but I don't think any of them are the caliber of the guys they lost, right? Shaq Barrett, of course, saves them because neither one of their pass rushers are going to be healthy to start the year. So that gives them a little something there, right? Aaron Brewer, center position, good player, athlete. That'll be good. He'll fit all the athletic things they ask their center to do. Brewer being a little undersized there is extremely athletic, not necessarily crazy power, right? And then Jordan Brooks is a guy that I always like the athlete. Just doesn't seem to have put it all together, all right? But, yeah, they're a team that's got a lot of contracts coming up. They're top heavy, and, it's just right now I wouldn't be lying. I'd be a little worried about them. They'd be one team I'd look at and go, I don't know. They didn't get better to me right now. That's what I would say, right? That would be the big thing. I'm not saying they got worse, but, man, those are some big people to lose in Van Ginkel, Christian Wilkins, and Robert Hunt.
And the fact that their pass rushers are coming off significant injury. So that's
ACL and Achilles?
I believe.
Is it both ACLs? What did Phillips do?
Phillips popped his Achilles.
All right, so
in the
Chubbs
Black Friday game against the Jets,
Chubbs
which is pretty
ACL,
late.
In the Ravens game.
So, I mean, maybe at 21 they look at this pass rush class. We know they need offensive line help. You're right, though. They definitely have a lot of work to do because of the salary constraints the team is dealing with.
Yes, they do.
The Steelers, another really interesting team in the AFC because of the quarterback situation. They signed Russell Wilson. They signed Patrick Queen. Dante Jackson they traded for, and they signed punter Cameron Johnston. Salvador Yoga said, hey, Chris, remember when the Steelers signed Trubisky only to draft Pickett? Any chance they do that to Russ? Say J.J. McCarthy drops them. Will they make Pickett the Mason Rudolph third stringer?
I don't think so, right? Trubisky was insurance policy. If we have to start the season with him, we will. If we don't end up getting the quarterback we want in the draft, it all worked out that way, right? I don't think they're looking to go, let's go back to the rookie quarterback formula, one. Two, I don't think they want to totally give up on Kenny Pickett. But, no, Russ is here to potentially and most likely be the starting quarterback. That's just, what I said to you earlier. I'm a believer in, he fits the way I think the Steelers want to play on the offensive side of the football, right? Run the ball. Okay, here's George Pickens open for an out route, throw it to him, run it. Ooh, play action pass deep down the middle. There's Freiermuth or, George Pickens running a go route on the outside, boom, touchdown. I think that's the way they're going to try to play here. And, Pickett can maybe run an offense better as far as picking you apart, short passes, intermediate throws over the middle that you alluded to earlier and all that. Yeah. But there's no big play element with Pickett. And that, to me, is what they've missed there. And I feel like they're going to be like, hey, we got a system of running the ball and getting some intermediate passes. No problem. Arthur Smith, I'll take care of all of that for you, Russell. But 3 or 4 times a game, I'm going to dial up the shot downfield, and that's where I need you to come through with a big-time throw. And that's where I think he can deliver. I do. And my biggest thing with Russell, as I said on Monday, it's the beacon of hope. There's no beacon of hope in Pittsburgh. I had this conversation with McCourty yesterday. That's been my phrase I've used, this beacon of hope, right? And what does the beacon of hope do? When you have a quarterback, and I know Russell Wilson's taken a hit here the last 2 years, but last year wasn't horrible, right? It just wasn't up to Sean Payton and his standards and what he thinks that can be done in that offense, right? They were still good there, right? There's some area to improve. Stop looking at the rush. Hey, there's guys open down the field, but you're looking at the rush. There's things he can work on. I get that, but it wasn't bad. To where you still go, whoa, he can still make a lot of big throws, and he can make the occasional old Russell Wilson magic that way, right? And in the locker room, a guy like Russell Wilson is going to give that locker room, we got to play Burrow and, this quarterback this week. Oh, we got Russell. We'll be okay. He'll keep us in this. He'll make some plays in the big moments to help us win the football game.
It's that feeling of we don't need to run for 150 yards and
the defense doesn't have to get a strip sack, and we got to block a punt to win the game.
Right.
That's shit's old. That's how it's felt. Right.
That's how it's
exactly
felt.
Right. Exactly right.
100%.
Yeah.
Let's move to a team
I love the Patrick Queen signing, though, for them.
Yeah.
Because
they needed a linebacker
They
badly.
have been looking for the replacement ever since Ryan Shazier got hurt. They have not been able to find that guy. The Steelers, middle linebacker play, going back to Bill Cowher in the late 90s, is essential to the Blitzburg defense. They do so much up front, right? You know that, right? They create so much chaos, and this guy goes this way and that goes that way. They need a guy at middle linebacker who's got incredible athletic ability, ball hawking skills, where it's like, it's not by the book always when you play middle linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Middle linebacker's like, wait, I got this gap, and I'm going to shuffle down the line. Like in Pittsburgh, they're like, hey, this guy's crossing this way, this guy's crossing this way. We don't know where we're going to end up. That's why we're paying you $13 million a year. Make a play, right? That's what they're going to ask. And they've been looking for that guy ever since Sagier traded up with the Devin Bush trade, never got it, right? And I think they got a guy here that fits it.
The Miles Jack signing last year, that didn't work.
Right.
Before we actually move off the Steelers, I want to ask you, what did you think of trading Deontay Johnson?
Yeah, I think that, contract year, right?
There's some funny
already a history of
it
being a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steeler
and
way.
they were like, great. Wait, now our pain in the ass is going into a contract year? Great, that's what we want to hear. When he doesn't have a game or two where he doesn't catch as many balls, right? So I think they looked at it and went, wait, we're the Steelers. We know how to draft receivers as good as anybody in the business, right? You've already said a million times there's a ton of receivers to have here. I wouldn't be surprised if they have their eye on a value guy in the second week of free agency that they feel like can help out their football team. And they need help at corner. That's the other thing. So, Dante Jackson will help them out in that aspect, being able to play nickel, play outside, do that. But I wasn't shocked when I saw Deontay Johnson traded.
For nothing.
A little bit of like, okay, who's going to be the next guy up right there? I don't know about that. Calvin Austin has got some capabilities.
The 51st pick in the draft.
Maybe that's
the next guy.
That's the next guy, right? I mean, that's what I would expect. But,
and it'll be a great one.
And it makes sense for the Panthers, too, just to hit on that real quick. They needed a proven commodity. They couldn't go the draft and go, well, we'll make it work in the draft, right? They needed something in their hand right now that they go, that's good, that'll work. And you couple that with Thielen and Laviska Shenault and all that, and you start to go, okay, they got something working.
Mingo takes a step in year two.
Mingo takes a step into it, too. Right, exactly.
The next team, I think it was the one I was the most excited to talk about. This is from NMFCB. Big shout out to the Texans. Added Joe Mixon, Danico Autry, Danielle Hunter, Al-Shaair, Mike Ford, and Okudah. Yes, they lost Grenard and Cashman, but I feel with these additions and with a good 2024 draft, they can win the AFC South again.
Yeah,
I wouldn't bet against that.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I think you and I both have the same thought here. We briefly just hit on them before we started the pod, right? And it's to me, they're one of the teams that's winning free agency right now. 100%. Like, of course, love Joe Mixon. Love that. I think Joe still runs hard, has physicality, and you couple him with Dameon Pierce, that's a damn good little duo they got there. They lost Greenard and Cashman. Both really good players, both guys I like. But they replaced them with two guys that are better. I mean, come on. Danielle Hunter is a unicorn. He's rare. And he's going to play in a scheme like he's never played in before where, like we talked about with the 49ers guys and all that, it's just line up outside and go get the quarterback. And then Azeez Al-Shaair to replace Cashman. Cashman's a damn good player, but Shaair is Pro Bowl, all-pro worthy talking middle linebacker in my opinion. So that is awesome. And then you added Danico Autry into the convo, who's a guy who on first and second down could play defense end if you need to get big, but it'll be a handful in the inside, a defensive tackle and 3 technique, right? Okudah's got talent, and I think at a spot here where they're not going to play a ton of man in Houston. He's going to play that Seattle 3 in their zones and all that, but I still think has skills and ability, just didn't live up to the number 3 pick. So, yeah, between all those moves right there, I'm a pretty big fan of what Houston's doing.
We talked about the Hunter deal. 2 years, $49 million, 48 of it's guaranteed. So this is just mercenary. I'm here for 2 years. I'm collecting all my money, and I'm going to probably stumble into 13 sacks.
Yeah. I mean,
in that scheme, like
you
said.
add him with Will Anderson. It's one of the best duos in football right now. And again, it's like there's nothing to read. There's nothing to think about. It's get wide. It's get after the quarterback. I have a hard time thinking that Danielle Hunter will not absolutely thrive, right? He probably feels like he should have got top of the market money, right? He's probably going, wait. Like, I'm as good as pressuring the quarterback as TJ Watt or Nick Bosa the last few years. You know, why the last 2 years especially. So why aren't I up there in that class? Okay, so he takes the next best thing, and like you said, he's going to get back to the market, and the next contract's going to ask for $32 million a year or whatever, maybe more. I mean, we'll see where it goes. But good for him, and way to battle back after a guy where we thought his career might be over with the neck injury. But man, you put Azeez El-Shaair in the middle with Christian Harris. That's like 5 rockets up 2 guys' asses all over the football field with those 2 defensive ends, Jalen Petrie, right? And we saw the corner Stingley start to come along. You start to go, damn, Houston's got some ballers on that side of the ball right now.
I would say Hunter is my super, super dark horse for defensive player of the year right now.
I hear you that. That's a good pick. I'm with you.
He could have 17 to 19
players,
sacks.
scheme fit, re-energized,
Right.
getting paid, all those things. I hear you there. I definitely. And, you know, if they get, you know, maybe a little more firepower on offense here at receiver, you know, well, there are a lot of games with C.J. Stroud. They're going to be up and winning these games, and he's going to be able to get after it. Right.
Winning team. Yeah, closing games. Staying in the division, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tomas Pena said, Calvin Ridley is a Chief, mark my words. I think Ridley might be going back to Jacksonville. Do you know the stipulations with this?
Well, no. I know, like, what part of it here?
So if he signs after 4 o'clock.
Oh, that's right.
The pick for Jacksonville that they traded doesn't become a second rounder to Atlanta. I think it stays a third.
It stays a third. That's right.
So there's like some theories that he's waiting to sign because of that, or Jacksonville's waiting for that. It's interesting.
I wouldn't be shocked.
And he could also be drawing up the price the longer this goes on if a team like the Chiefs were involved, which we don't know yet.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if that's what they're doing.
They've been busy at wide receiver, though.
They have been busy at receiver.
Gabe Davis and Devin Duvernay.
I like what Jacksonville's done, right? I do. And now, like, it's not the ones that are going to blow you out of the water. They needed to improve their offensive line. They definitely did that, you know, with re-signing Ezra Cleveland and getting Mitch Morse. Right, so I like that. Gabe Davis, not a world beater. Hello, everyone. He's not a number 1 superstar like everybody's been telling me. Oh, man, I know. I was sarcastic about this on Monday, but, like, there's just too many people over the last 2 years that's been telling me Josh Allen's got superstars all over. 3 years, $13 million? What? That doesn't say superstar. $13 million a year? I mean, that says,
Kendrick Bourne level contract.
That says low end number 2, high level 3. That's what that contract is, everybody. So, but I still like it. They need a guy with a little size and physicality, catch the ball over the middle, do all of that. Goes along well with, you know, Christian Kirk and the rest of the receivers they got there. Duvernay, of course, a speed guy. So, yeah, I do. I think they got value signings. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not splash. It's just things that I think will help round out their football team and make them better.
They tried to raise the floor. I mean, Mitch Morse starting over Luke Fortner is raising the floor of your offensive line.
In the Chiefs thing, I'm just with the Calvin Ridley thing, I don't know. You know, again, I have no inside knowledge there. I haven't heard anything that would make me think that. Like, I've heard that around the news media, you know, wire, but nothing of, like, substantiated claims from people I know or heard from in the NFL to think that's a thing. So
wouldn't Ridley kind of handle a lot of the schematic things they ask of Rashee Rice? And then you're drafting a speedster.
It's not, and the kind of the big thing too is just what kind of money is he asking for there too? That's where I don't see or envision the Chiefs going crazy at that position for that. And I would agree with you, and you're saying there, like, there's a lot of similarities to Rashee Rice. Let alone Calvin Ridley was good last year, but I'm not sure it's the kind of good that I would go, oh, it blew me out of the water, and we need to give him number 1 wide receiver type of money. I don't see that. I'm sorry. And I don't think Kansas City will see that either at the end of the day. I don't think they're going to be willing to do that. Like, they might be willing to pay a receiver, but I think it's going to be a no-brainer. Like, we know this guy's the guy, the freak, and can be the number 1 star. You know, other than that, I don't think they're going to be rushing to anything like that because they're going to go, well, we got a lot of good and we got a quarterback that's awesome, so we're not that desperate to do anything that desperately at wide receiver.
Let's put a bow on that division with the Titans because you kind of went to bat at the beginning of the podcast for the Tony Pollard signing.
Yeah.
They also got an upgrade at center in Lloyd Cushenberry. They signed Sadiq Charles at guard, Kenneth Murray, and Chidobe Awuzie for the defense. The Titans were pretty busy after losing Derrick Henry, Aaron Brewer, Danico Autry, Al-Shaair, and Sean Murphy-Bunting.
Yeah, it's, I like their signings. I think it fits for what they want to do, right? I mean, hey, I would have liked to have seen him re-sign Azeez Al-Shaair. I would have. That's certainly one where I look at and go, damn, he's good. You sure you want to let him
Murray's
out the door?
A significant downgrade.
Yeah. Murray, like, great athletic ability, but just not the player, and has not turned into what, we all thought he would be, being a first-round pick out of Oklahoma. But Awuzie, good player, right? And, of course, he knows what he's all about in Callahan as far as being with them in Cincinnati the last few years. They needed a center and a guy that Callahan felt like can dominate the interior part of an offensive line. So, yeah, I like that as well. And then, of course, we talked about Tony Pollard. I think they were good, what I would say, filled some needs and culture things and things that you go, hey, for what they're going to do schematically on both sides of the ball, they need some guys like this. And I think that's where I liked it and thought it made sense.
So the Titans picking 7th in the draft, they add some additions to their offensive line. Does it feel like this is a team that now they're also in play to take a wide receiver in the top 10?
Definitely.
I mean, it's looking a little rough there right now.
I'm trying to think here. They're a team that just, again, I haven't thought about all teams and their needs as far as draft, but like just you and I just talking here, right? Receiver for sure, right? Pass rusher.
Dillard's their left tackle, so
they got Harold Landry. Yeah, Dillard, how do they feel about that?
That's a great question.
They could, you're right, tackle, wide receiver, right? Maybe pass rusher.
Maybe.
Maybe it, but I would think it's more along the offensive line, and the pass catcher would be at the top of my list for the Tennessee Titans.
And they pick at 38 as well, so they can honestly address both of those needs in any
the first
order.
Two picks,
in any order they
want to do it. Exactly right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Brian Callahan era kind of with Ran brings in there. Okay, let's move over to the Raiders, who were pretty busy right out of the gate. S.H. Morris 92 said, love the Christian Wilkins move for the Raiders. Gives them another playmaker on defense. This defense with the number 1 corner would be a dangerous group. Curious of your opinion on the Gardner Minshew signing. Does he move the needle to you over Aiden O'Connell?
Well, I think yes, he does. I do. I think one is it's like we talk about. It was a little bit back to like our Pittsburgh conversation with the Mitch Trubisky and the question we got there, right? This is one where I think they go.
Beacon of hope.
Hey, he could be the starter, right?
Yeah.
He could be the starter, but he could be, also the bridge guy in case we do draft our future quarterback here. Right, just like he was for the Indianapolis Colts. And then we go, oh, hey, we don't have to start our rookie star quarterback right away, or if our rookie gets hurt, hey, we got a good backup in that. But I think within that contract and what they're saying there, he's definitely going to be taking the first team reps when it comes OTAs. That'll be him. 2 years, $25 million is pretty significant. That number is you're an awesome backup fringe starter. That's what that is telling all of us out there. So I think that's what it is. And it buys them insurance in case they don't get, in the quarterback market, which I think they desperately want to get into here.
Yeah, I've heard the
as far
same.
as the draft is concerned. The Wilkins thing, I think, was a necessity, had to be done. They needed – this is what, my man got on me for in the Raiders and Max Crosby, that he had a bone to pick with me because I always said they don't have enough blue-chip players on their defense, and he was sticking up for his guys, which he should. But this is what I was talking about. And this is what I mean.
He'll be happier for this.
They needed a guy that takes pressure off him, that can make some plays outside the realm of what Patrick Graham does. So because of that, I really do like the signing of Christian Wilkins. They needed it, and they found a guy that I think they thought embodied what they wanted. Patrick Graham knows Christian Wilkins from his Brian Flores connection in the Miami Dolphins. And then, of course, you got a defensive head coach in Antonio Pierce where he wants his defense to set the attitude and be the ass kicker in the division. And Christian Wilkins is certainly going to help that.
If they get anything from Tyree Wilson next year, that trio of Wilson, Crosby, and Wilkins
will be
up front,
scary.
I mean, they would absolutely raise hell.
Yes,
in
they
the
will.
trenches.
Right.
He's like the biggest variable.
He is one of the biggest variables in all of NFL.
I agree.
Because when he was coming out, I was like, this guy might be Myles Garrett, right? But he didn't do jack diddly squat last year dealing with that foot injury. You never really got to. I at no point thought like, ooh, he looks as explosive as I saw him at Texas Tech. So let's see if he can get totally healthy there and turn the corner that way.
He's got to get healthy. Another team that's been really busy from a volume perspective is the Washington Commanders. New owner, new GM, new head coach. They've signed a ton of different players. C4 Bain said, I really like how Adam Peters and the Commanders have aggressively and efficiently plugged holes on the roster. They signed a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota, who we assume will be the backup quarterback for whoever they draft number 2 overall. We'll see what happens with Sam Howell.
Yeah,
we talked about Austin Eckler. They bring in a lot of veterans here. Zach Ertz, Nick Allegretti, and Tyler Biotish for the interior of the offensive line. Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Farrell on the edge. Frankie Louvu, a very underrated off-ball linebacker. Safety Jeremy Chin, kind of a chess piece on the back end, Chris. And then special teams, a kicker in Brandon McManus and a long snapper in Tyler Ott. They lost Jacoby Brissett, Antonio Gibson, and Sadiq Charles.
Ex-Cowboys, character players, right? Guys that washed the rinse the mouth out of the bad taste of the last regime, right? Guys that Dan Quinn knows to kind of set the right tone in the locker room, addresses a ton of positions. Again, this is a team that needed a lot of help in a lot of areas, right? So we know the offensive line, especially the interior part, needed help. They got that with Badiaz. How do you say his name? Biotish. I always mess that up. And then Nick Allegretti, right? Dorrance Armstrong knows him from Dallas days. Cleveland Farrell, was in San Francisco and in the 49ers scheme, right? So he runs the same scheme, very similar. So he's seen what he does there. Jeremy Chin, right? Guy that hasn't killed it the last few years, but's got some potential. I don't know. Are they going to bring him in to be a linebacker, maybe?
Right. What is
he? Might be with that kind of defense.
Nickel?
They usually go, fast, smaller linebacker, right? I could see him being that guy right there, right? Austin Eckler, of course, is going to add some value in pass game situations in the Cliff Kingsbury offense. So all those things are awesome. I mean, they're awesome as far as not splash, but certainly help their roster for some depth, some versatility, some energy in the right direction, culture, all of that. And that's where I think the value is. And, we'll see what else they do from here. But the Mariota thing you talked about, right? I mean, that move there even leads me below that, it's number 2 is quarterback. They're going to do that for sure, right? Sam Howell, what happens there is going to be interesting.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you do with Sam Howell in that spot?
You could keep 3.
You could.
It's not necessarily like it's expensive here with Sam Howell. All right? Or some team gets to down the line here and they go, damn, we don't have a good backup. Here's a late round pick for Sam Howell. Or you hang on to him. Maybe till training camp early in the year. You go, oh, this guy got hurt. Oh, you need a quarterback. Sam Howell played a lot last year, right? So I feel like he's kind of like the jack of all trades here right now. But, yeah, Marcus Mariota, they don't want to back up young quarterback with young quarterback who gets sacked and throws a lot of interceptions. Yeah. They're not trying to do that, right? So they're going to go young quarterback at 2 with, okay, we got a veteran guy who's been there and done that a little bit in Mariota, and I think they feel better about that. And I think that's what speaks to, I mean, that signing right there just, solidified quarterback at number 2 for me.
Our last team, the Los Angeles Rams, who took care of business keeping some of their own guys, most notably guard Kevin Dotson, and then went out and spent big money on another guard in Jonah Jackson. Mark Floyd said the Rams are road graders, and I love it. What position should we be looking at in the draft? I go back to the Simms and Lefko days, #cheers. Chris, let's stick with the first point about road graders. This is a team that last year was very gap-heavy in their run game, not as zone-heavy. Now they are lining up Jonah Jackson. I think it's safe to assume Steve Avila is going to move to center after being a great second-round pick last year, and you bring back Kevin Dotson. I mean, the Rams will absolutely line up and just punch you in the mouth and run north and south.
With
Kyron Williams, who's phenomenal.
The Rams are our listener said it right. I mean, they got killers right now. Sean McVay adjusted his thought, obviously, in the last 2 years about what he expects from an offensive line, right? He always kind of had, what I would say zone scheme type of guys, smaller but athletic type of
Cam
guys for the
Akers
most
pick
part.
Was that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that kind of
for the backfield.
Yeah,
you're talking about the line though.
The
for
line,
sure.
yeah. They've always had those type of guys. You're saying it right. Our Mark Floyd's saying it right. It's road graders now. It's ass kickers. It's size. It's we're gonna maul you.
Yep.
I mean, you throw in Dotson, right? Avila, like you're talking about, and now Jonah Jackson. I'd go. That's about as big as 3 guards and as powerful as you're gonna get.
They're drive blockers.
They are drive blockers. Let alone, right? They're not athletic zone guys. They're block down. Somebody pull and maul this guy as you pull and crush him, right? This is to me, my little 2 cents on this. Mike LaFleur used to be the running game coordinator for the 49ers, right? He went to the Rams after he got fired by the Jets as the offensive coordinator. Everything that I look at and say, he taught McVay Shanahan run game stuff, right? He taught him going, Kyle used to do this. Kyle ran this scheme. Hey, let me teach you there. Let me help you with this. I kind of know this. And that's where the Rams became different this year. They became a very versatile run scheme team. And Kyron Williams is not only awesome, but, yeah, you add those O-linemen. And then, again, your quarterback's older and he doesn't move that well. So put a wall in front of him, and I promise you he's still going to throw dimes all over the field to Nakua and Cooper Kupp. And that's where I go. The Rams now start addressing the defense a little bit and watch out for the Rams next year.
And they're another team. They have a first-round pick this year.
Yeah.
The defensive players in this draft are going to fall because of the allure and the obsession of the wide receivers, tackles, and quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The Rams can get a great player where they pick in this draft on defense. So they're a scary
and
team.
they're a great drafting team, as we know.
They really are. They didn't care about the picks. Now they do.
Yeah, exactly right. They didn't care about some of those high picks because they were like, hey, we're going to get a star here, and then our fourth and third and fifth round picks are going to be awesome because we know how to pick them, and we'll be okay. And, they made it work there for a long, long time with that formula.
We can't close out this free agency episode without a quick mention of the Cowboys.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, I'm blown away. I can't keep up with all the news.
It's code red in Dallas.
They want them some glory hole.
Here's the
glory hole.
They lose Dorrance Armstrong, Tyler Biotish, Dante Fowler, and Tony Pollard. PSL to Flushing, who is my guy Joe DeMeo. He said the Cowboys kept their long snapper. I was nervous.
Hey, we all were. I mean,
what's going on here? I know they aren't typically the wave one free agency team.
Yeah, they are definitely
a win now team.
They are a win now team, but it's got some balancing to do, right?
You need players.
Win now team got a lot of good players, but also have holes that I would look at that are glaring, that doesn't put you in the upper echelons of teams in the NFL. And then you couple that with, they got to do something with Dak Prescott and his contract. They're going to have to pay CeeDee Lamb. And as I said to Florio this morning, if I'm Micah Parsons, there's no way I'm stepping on the field until I'm one of the 2 highest paid defensive players in football. It's just not happening. So they got to worry about that. So, yeah, you said it right. Typically, they're a week 2 free agency team, and I think that's what they'll stand by this year, and especially because of some of the things they got to figure out in-house right now with paying their own guys and trying to get that done, before they start worrying about throwing out big money. Like, if they threw big money out to some free agent right now, Michael Parsons and CeeDee Lamb are going to be like on social media like, what the are you kidding me? You didn't pay us, and you paid this guy. So yeah, they're trying to figure all that out before they spend any more else, big money on anybody else.
And Tyron Smith's still out there too.
Exactly,
that's going to be really interesting because that's a big hole.
Well,
I know
it's like you talked about that contract. How do you balance his age, the health, the amount of money? Because when he does play well, he's still really damn good.
Yep.
Right, not superstar good anymore, but real damn good. Right. So yeah, that's he could be one that I wouldn't be shocked if he sat out there for a little while, right? And just, maybe is asking for a little too much money right now, but once a team gets into OTAs, early training camp, and they start to go, man, we're not good at tackle. Okay, give Tyrone that extra $2 or $3 million he was asking for and sign him up, right?
Yeah.
That's where I feel like this could go with Tyron.
Dallas, Kansas City. There's
exactly.
Kansas City is just the one that makes the most sense. But like you said, the money is always the question.
That to me is the big question as we go forward.
Opening day is right around the corner, and you can get your Roto World Baseball Draft Guide now. Visit NBCSports.com/draft guide and use code BASEBALL24 to get 10% off. And Thursday at 8 p.m., we'll premiere our Fantasy Baseball Mock Draft show. You can watch at youtube.com/NBC Sports. Chris, we got through a lot today.
We got through a lot,
that's
right.
It was fun. And this is just wave one.
It's just wave one. And, no disrespect for the other teams out there that we didn't talk to. We just felt like some of the other teams we talked to, we can't do a 7-hour podcast, and we felt like there wasn't enough there to kind of unpack. But we're going to as we go along here. And some of them deserve some longer conversations, I think, to unpack. And that's why we're going to wait a little bit, too.
The Panthers would be one of those,
Exactly right. I think there's some bigger philosophy things to talk about with some of these football teams as we go forward. But, hey, again, we're not going to avoid this. We'll keep free agency talk alive next week. All right, but we'll be right back into our draft rankings. Me and Connor in the thick of things. I'm trying to catch up to him. He's way down the road. He's an expert. I'm still a novice at this point. I've only finished the quarterbacks.
You're going to have fun with wide receiver.
I'm just diving into the receivers. Yeah, I am having fun.
This is one of those ones where every single day.
I almost brought it up a few times during the podcast, and I was like, you know what? Let's not go there. Let me wait till next week. All right, everybody, be good. Connor, as always, thanks for looking cool. Thanks for driving this ship. You're so much cooler than Ahmed Fareed. It's like not even close. I mean, really, you really are. He's such an old man dad commentator. I love talking shit about Ahmed when he's not here. All right, everybody, be good. Peace out. Have a good weekend. Be safe. We'll see you Monday. Clap it up. Yo, homies, what's up? I know it's the off-season, but it's never the off-season on Chris Simms Unbuttoned. Me and Ahmed Fareed are going to be here for it all. We got free agency. We're going to break it all down. The draft, the rankings of positions. Of course, we're going to unpack it all. Hit subscribe, get to my free agency reactions, 2024 draft rankings, and more. Thanks again for watching. Peace out, homies. See you soon.